Have you ever had a conversation that turned sour or maybe fizzled out into an awkward silence? Or maybe a conversation where the audience, the person that you're talking to, looked really bored, and then you started to run out of things to say, but you just didn't know how to end the conversation politely. Well, today, what I'm going to share with you is a more of a fun video. And I'm going to share with you some really cool tips and tricks on how to end a conversation politely and not be rude. So when it comes to ending a conversation, there is a myth out there that how you end the conversation is so important. However, I'm here to bust that myth. How you end the conversation is not so much as important as compared to where you end the conversation. Where you end the conversation determines the lasting impact that you can have on your listeners. Isn't that the most important thing anyway? When you're in conversation with somebody, you want to leave a lasting impact. It could be that you're talking to a potential boss and you want to leave a lasting impression so that they remember you. It could be that you've met someone for the first time, but you want to continue a more meaningful relationship, a deeper friendship. And so you want to leave an impression, no matter who you are speaking with. So where you end the conversation is more important than how. So the first thing I want to do is share with you where to end the conversation, and then I'm going to share the how, right? Doesn't that sound fair? Okay. So if you resonate with this video, by the way, if you resonate with what I'm saying with you and you've had those issues as well, the challenges, the awkward silences, and running out of things to say, then give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and receive notifications every time I release a new video, because I frequently upload videos like this that are fun and engaging around communication, speaking, and articulation. Okay, so on with this video. When it comes to ending it, most people end the conversation once it gets to that lull. Have you ever experienced that, right? The conversation starts out, you shake the hand, you meet the person, or maybe you know them and you have this conversation with them. And there's a little bit of a crescendo in the conversation. But somehow when it gets to that height point, you've talked, you shared everything you wanted to share, the information, you've shared your ideas, and there's just this lull, right? It gets to a high. Usually conversations come to a crescendo and then it kind of descends. It comes down, back down the slope. And then there's this awkwardness and there's a lull, right? The fizzling out that I described earlier. At that time, when it gets to the lull and the fizzle, that's when it's too late. That's already too late. You don't want to end the conversation there, because if you end the conversation there, it's already at the height of awkwardness. It's already in that lull, the silence, the fizzling out. So if you end the conversation here, that's exactly the impact that you're going to leave behind when you walk away from that conversation. So instead of ending the conversation at the lull, you want to end it on the high note, when the conversation is at the highest point of interest and the highest point of intrigue. Now, I know you might be feeling that, well, that feels really counterintuitive, because you don't want to end the conversation on a high, because you want to continue it, keep it going. But here's the thing, it's impossible to keep that conversation going forever. At some point, it will come down. At some point, every crescendo, what comes up will come down. At some point, there will be a lull, an awkwardness of not knowing what to say next. You don't want to wait for it to get there. You end on that high note. So when you end the conversation at the highest point, that's what keeps the level of excitement high. It's much better than letting it shift to awkwardness before you end the call. So that's the first thing, is where you end it. When you get this principle, ending it on a high note, the height of interest, the height of intrigue, then the how will work better. So right now at this point, I'm going to share with you how to end the conversation in a way that is polite, but at the same time professional. Right. So here is what I'm going to share: 5 high impact ways to end the conversation politely without being rude, because the goal is to end the conversation with high impact, not with low impact, or not with a lasting impression of this being a bored and painful conversation. We want to end it in a high impact. Now, what you're going to notice is that the methods that I'm about to share with you have the highest impact on the listener, right? And that's important. You want the impact to be on the listener, not on you. This is not about you or your reputation or conveying your intelligence. It cannot be about you, because that's not what conversations are for. Conversations are for you to effectively communicate your ideas and your viewpoints, maybe share your opinions, but it's not so that you can get what you want. It is really in service to your audience. And you're going to notice that the methods that I'm about to share with you, they work because it meets 3 very important criteria. Number 1, it complements them. And we all want to be acknowledged. So it's an acknowledgement, a compliment. Number two, the second criteria, it makes them feel appreciated. That's a fundamental human principle. We all want to be appreciated where we're at. We want to be appreciated exactly for who we are. And the third criteria is that this method, these methodologies make them feel accepted, right? Being accepted, being appreciated, feeling acknowledged. Those are three very important human principles when it comes to the psychology of ending a conversation powerfully, but at the same time, not rudely. All right, so now I'm going to launch into these tips and tricks. These are tips and tricks, by the way. Tip number one is continuity. So here's what you can say when you are at the height of the conversation, the height of interest and intrigue. You can say something that sounds like this. I'm really enjoying our conversation, and I'd love to continue it over lunch. Right? And this is effective because you have acknowledged you're enjoying the conversation. You have shown them that you appreciate them, but at the same time, you're extending a hand for continuity. Let's continue this over lunch, or let's continue it the next day. Whatever you say in there, of course, it's up to you, but look at the thinking behind this technique. What I'm doing, I'm not giving you scripts. I'm not giving you a script that you have to write down word for word and say it word for word. What I want you to do is get into the practice of looking at the thinking behind what I'm saying, the principles behind it. So that's the first tactic, is continuity. The second tactic is ingenuity. And this is where you say something like this. It's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. I'm definitely going to remember you. It's a statement. And it's ingenious because now you're telling them that I'm going to remember you for this. And now it acknowledges them as having shared with you something that is memorable, something that you're telling them that your viewpoints that you just shared with me were absolutely intriguing. I've never heard anything like this before. And that's the highest level of compliment that you can give to the partner that you're communicating with. So now because you've made them feel this way, they're going to want more. So that's why this tactic works. Again, look at the thinking behind it. This is not a script. Once again, I'm not giving you a script that you write down and say word for word. It doesn't work like that. It is the principle behind what I'm sharing with you. Okay, so that's tip number two. Tip number three is extending your hand for a handshake. You extend your hand just like this, right? And you follow it up with a thank you and a compliment of something they just said. When you hold out your hand, what that says, right? Whenever you hold out your hand to greet someone, it doesn't just mean nice to meet you. Holding out your hand also means I come in peace. It also means I appreciate you. It's an invitation. They're coming into your personal space. So that's why this works. This, again, what you say, the thank you and how you say it, it really depends on the context. And by the way, I'm giving you a lot of high-level principles that are embedded in the tactics that I'm sharing with you. But if you want to learn more and you want to know, well, how do I implement this in my particular situation? Or what if I'm in a workplace that has a lot of high-charged, high-stakes conversations? What do I do then? Right? And if that's you and you want that guidance, more guidance, then I invite you to book a call with me. In the description below this video, the first link is a link to book a call with me. This is where you're going to either chat with myself or a member of my team. And this is a first conversation, just an introductory call to discover whether or not it's the right fit for you and for me to really help you with what you're looking for in terms of up-leveling your communications, developing relationships, and also taking your career to the next level. I'm going to help you to implement exactly these principles into your communications so that you can take the lead every single time. Now, this is for you if you're serious about producing this outcome for your career. This is not for you if you're a beginner, if you just started your career, or if you're a student or a recent graduate, then this is not for you. However, if you're ready to take on those leadership roles, if you're ready to be seen, be heard, be more visible in your industry, then book a call with me and I look forward to seeing you on the inside. Right. I have two more tips, by the way, 2 more tips. The fourth tip is giving them your real reason why you need to end the conversation. It's got to be a real reason. It can't. Now, this is where you have to use your common sense, your sensory acuity, and your emotional intelligence as well. It's got to be a real reason. For example, maybe it's time for another meeting that you have booked, but it's got to be true. Or maybe that's all the time you have for today, and you need to give yourself time to get across town because you have another meeting. And because of traffic, right, it takes time to get there. Those could be real reasons. But this is where you're offering transparency and honesty, giving them your real reasons why you got to end the conversation now. Right, so that's tip number 4. And finally, tip number 5, and I want to hear from you, by the way, comment below. I know this was a really fun conversation. Hopefully it got you thinking as well. So comment below because I want to hear from you. Which was your favorite tip? Which one really resonated with you? Which one are you going to try next? Comment below. I want to hear from you. Okay, so now tip number 5 is longevity. This is where you can say something like this. It was so lovely chatting with you. I'd love to keep in touch. Right? Or it was so lovely, or if you're in a networking meeting, it was so lovely chatting with you, right? Do you mind if I have your business card so that we can keep in touch? So you got to adopt it to your situation. Context is key. What is your particular context? How do you adopt these 5 tips to your particular context? So I want to hear from you once again, now that you know the 5 tips and tricks to ending a conversation without being rude so that you can be polite and professional. Let me hear from you. Which one is your favorite?